Down there, life continues. The traffic is awful, stocks go on trading, and Star Trek is still showing.
Hello, grade 9 learners. Welcome to today's natural sciences lesson. Welcome back to term 4, right? Things have changed and we are going to engage on our knowledge trend now, which is energy and change, right? So I want us to apply that energy throughout our whole lessons, right? So my name is Mr. Siada Madala, and this lesson is proudly brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education. Right. Today's topic is about the spheres of Earth, right? We're going to be talking now about the spheres of Earth and mainly about what? The four spheres of the Earth's system. That's our main focus for today's lesson. So I hope you are prepared and you are well rejuvenated, right? Now, let's look at what we need to achieve by the end of this lesson. By the end of this lesson, these are the following things that you should have achieved, right? You should be able first to do what? To explain that the earth can be understood as a complex system where all parts which are called spheres interact with each other. That's the main thing that you should focus on for today's lesson. Secondly, you should be in a position where you are able to discuss the four spheres that interact on or near the Earth's surface. Are we together? That's all that you need to do for today's lesson, or which is all that you need to achieve by the end of today's lesson. And all this information is found under the CAPS document on page 78. Moving on. Now I want us to look at our foundation, right? What we have done in the previous grades and probably the same grade that can lay a foundation to today's lesson. So in grade 4, if you remember very well, we have introduced what? Planet Earth, right? We said that planet Earth is the only planet that accommodates life. We also talked about what? The Earth and the Sun. Then later on, another foundation is our grade 7. So in grade 7, we also talked about the relationship between the Earth and the Sun. Not only that, we talked also about the importance of the Sun for the life on Earth. Then later on in grade 8, that's when we discussed what? We discussed the relationship between the Earth and other planets in our solar system, right? That's all that we have done as foundation to today's lesson. So I hope you bring all that knowledge, right? All that knowledge from grade 4, 7, and 8 so that you can be able to lay a proper foundation for today's lesson and you are able to understand going forward. Now, also, I want us to test ourselves, right? Here is a baseline activity that I want us to use to test how far we know, right? So number 1 is saying, what is a system? Are we together? You need to answer what is a system. Then number 2, would life on Earth be possible without air, without water, without soil and rocks? Then explain your answer, right? It is 2 questions and the other one needs an explanation. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to complete this activity. Now let's meet again after 3 minutes. Welcome back, grade 9s. Now, were you able to win with those answers? Were you able to write down the answers? I hope so, right? So now, let's look at the solutions quickly. Number one is asking, what is a system, right? And a system is what? A system is a set of things, right? A set of things working together for a specific function. But the answer here reads as what? A set of things working together as parts of a mechanism or an interconnecting network, which can be a complex whole. Don't forget to mark your work, right? Number two, would life on Earth be possible without the air, water, soil, and rocks? And explain your answer. The answer is no, right? It would not be possible. Why? This is because all the air, water, soil, and rocks, they are all interdependent and they work together to sustain life. So let me just give you a quick 2 minutes to copy down the corrections, then we can move on. Welcome back, grade 9s. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or answers that you wish to send to us, WhatsApp us on the WhatsApp number on the screen, right? So now let's move on with our lesson. Now let's check the terminology that is associated with this lesson, right? The important terms that you need to grasp before you know, right? So that you are able to lay a good foundation as well, so that you can be able to understand the concepts. Now, the first one there is spheres of the earth. What do we mean by spheres of the earth, right? Spheres of the earth are one of four interacting parts of the earth. Secondly, we have atmosphere, right? And I think this one you are familiar to hearing it, right? Atmosphere. This is the sphere of the earth that is a layer of gases around the earth. Also, we have biosphere, which is the sphere of the earth that consists of all living organisms, that can be your plants and animals, and their interactions with the non-living things, that can be your rocks, soil, air, and water of the earth. We also have what? We also have lithosphere, which is the sphere of the earth that consists of solid rock and soil. Then we have what? Hydrosphere, which is the sphere of the earth that consists of water in all its forms, whether it's liquid, solid, or gaseous state, right? Now let's talk more about this topic of today, right? the four spheres of the Earth's system, right? Now let's start by defining system, right? Yes, the Earth can be understood as a system, but we said that a system is different parts working together for a specific function. Are we together? It's different parts working together for a specific function, and that is a system. So also the Earth can be understood as a system, right? Meaning the Earth has different parts that work together so that we can be able to sustain life. Are we together? So we say what? The parts are all different, but they are interconnected and interact with each other. That's how a system works like, right? If you think of anything, right, that is a system, it has different parts that are working together to bring about what? One function. Now, we are probably in a classroom now, right, in front of a desk. That desk is a system. Why am I saying it is a system? It is because it has different parts that work together for you to be able to put your books on top of the table so that you can be able to lean on top of the table, right? It has what? It has steel, it has screws, it has wood, and so on, right? Those are different parts, but they are all working together for that specific function to enable you to put down your books, to put whatever that you put on top of that table. Are we together? Here's another example here. A bicycle, right? How is a bicycle a system? Now let's look at this person here, right? He is cycling, right? But when you look at a bicycle on its own, it is a system because it has different parts working together, right? It has different parts working together so that the person is able to cycle going forward, right? Now, if you think of a bicycle, it has what? It has pedals, it has a chain, it has metal, it has brakes, it has tires, it has a check, right? All these parts are different from each other, but they enable the person to be able to cycle, to be able to stop the bicycle from moving, and to be able to change direction, and to be able to get the person to work, right? So that is a system, all the different parts working together to bring about a specific function. Moving on. Now, the Earth as a system. Now, think of where you are standing now, right? There's air that you are breathing around, right? This is the Earth where we all are now. Then there's air that you are breathing around, right? We are breathing in and out. Also, probably you are thirsty, you are drinking water. You use water to wash your hands. Plants depend on water to survive, right? There's also land, which is where you're standing now. Land where the plants are embedded, right? There's also us as life. Are we together? Our plants, our animals, human beings, trees, and so on, right? All these, they are all together but different and working together for a specific function, which is life. Are we together? If you look at air, air is different from water. Water is different from land, and land is different from life. But they are all interconnected and they interact with each other at some point. And that's what we are going to learn more about today. So we said that the parts of the Earth's system are called spheres, right? So we're saying that an Earth can be identified as a system because it has different parts that are working together, right, to sustain life. And the parts of that Earth's system, we call them what? Spheres, right? We call them spheres. And in total, the Earth has four spheres. Are we together? The Earth has four spheres. So we're going to talk more about these four spheres in terms of how now they interconnect and interact with each other. So hence the Earth has four spheres. One of the or each of these spheres, they are made up of what? Air, right? One sphere is made up of air, one sphere of water, one sphere of land, and one sphere is about life. And namely, these spheres are the lithosphere, the biosphere, the atmosphere, and also the hydrosphere, right? So now, excuse me. So the hydrosphere is all about the waters, right? If you look at this, It's all about the waters of the Earth system, right? Then the biosphere has to do with life, right? All where life is accommodated and the interactions of life with the non-living. So we're talking about what now? If you were to talk about the atmosphere, you find microorganisms also in the atmosphere, right? Which are part of the living. You find fishes and all the other living organisms in water. You find other living organisms on the lithosphere, which is what? The land, right? So the biosphere has to do with all the non-living components with their interactions with the non-living components. So meaning what? All the other spheres cannot exist without the biosphere. So that's what we're going to talk more about now. So just know that there is 4 spheres of the Earth system, namely the atmosphere, the lithosphere, the hydrosphere, and the biosphere. Now, starting off with the atmosphere, we're going to talk about the atmosphere now. We say that the atmosphere is the layer of gases around Earth, right? So if you look at this, right, does it look familiar? Yes, right? That is what we know as our sky, right? So the sky is part of the what? The atmosphere, right? The layer of gases around us. Are we together? So these layers of gases, what happens? It is made up of many gases, right? And mainly the nitrogen, which contributes about 78% of the Earth's atmosphere, the oxygen, which contributes about 21% of the Earth's atmosphere, and carbon dioxide, which is less than 1%, and other gases such as argon. And all these gases that I'm talking about here, they are within the atmosphere, right? They are within the layer of gases around us, like your oxygen, your carbon dioxide, your nitrogen, and argon, and so on, right? All these are within the atmosphere and they make up the atmosphere. Also, the atmosphere, which is the layer of gases around us, it is made up of its own layers. Are we together? It is made up of its own layers. Like when you look at here, right? This is the Earth, right? This is the planet Earth. And now, just above or around the Earth, we find what? The atmosphere. So from 0 to 10 kilometers, we find the first layer of the atmosphere, which is the troposphere. Are we together? Then from there, from 10 kilometers to 30 kilometers, we find the stratosphere of the atmosphere. Moving on from 30 kilometers to 50 kilometers of the atmosphere, we find the mesosphere of the atmosphere. Then we find from 50 to 400 kilometers the thermosphere, right? Then from there on, 400 kilometers going upwards, we found the outermost layer of the atmosphere, which is the exosphere. So all of these there, right? They are layers of one layer of the Earth, right? They are layers of the atmosphere. They make up the atmosphere. So what is the importance of the atmosphere? Why does it need to have so much layers? Let's talk more about it, right? So the structure of the atmosphere is composed of many layers that I've just mentioned now, right? The troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and exosphere, right? So yes, the Earth is surrounded by this blanket of gases, right? Which is called the atmosphere, which has its own layer, right? And now all these layers, they are held together by what? By gravity. They are held together by the force of gravity that pulls everything to the center of the ground. And the atmosphere serves a purpose of protecting the Earth from the sun's UV rays. Are we together? The Earth's atmosphere, it protects the Earth from the sun's harmful ultraviolet violet rays during the day, and at night it keeps the Earth warm to stop heat from escaping into space. So now during insolation, right, when the sun hits the Earth's ground, what happens? The atmosphere absorbs most of the sun's UV rays so that it gives what? Protection to the Earth. So that animals, species like us, we don't suffer from extreme heat. as well as at night during terrestrial radiation, when now the gases are being given off from the Earth's ground to the atmosphere. It traps heat, right? So that we do not get cold. It traps heat in its uh, in its own layer as the atmosphere. So it serves for protection and mainly guarding what? Guarding temperatures, so that we do not get too much heat and we do not lose too much heat. That's why the atmosphere is so important. Moving on, let's talk now about the hydrosphere, right? The hydrosphere is all the waters of the earth, right? It is all the waters in every form, meaning it is in solid, liquid, and gas, whether they are found underground, in the air, or in the sea. So when you look at this picture here, right, it is the wave from the ocean, right? It is the wave from the ocean, right? And the oceans are made up of what? Of water. So the Earth has been called the blue planet due to the presence of water on it, right? And all inhabitants on Earth are directly or indirectly influenced by the presence of water on it. Not to forget that the Earth is made up of, or the largest part of Earth is made up of what? Of water. Now, also, let's talk about the lithosphere, right? The lithosphere is all the solid rocks and soil of the land and the seafloor, which is mainly the crust and the uppermost mantle. So now, if you talk of the lithosphere, it is also made up of what? Of the layers, right? It is made up of some layers. It is the inner core, the outer core, the mantle, and the crust, right? If you look at this diagram, the crust extends from 0 to 100 kilometers thick, right? That's how thick it is to form about the crust that you are standing on, and also what? The floor of the ocean. Now, lastly, the biosphere now. We said that the biosphere, it's all the living things, right? All the living plants and animals and their interactions with the non-living things, which are the rocks, the soil, the air, and the water of the other sphere. Which is why I said that the biosphere or the other spheres cannot exist without the biosphere. Are we together? So when you look at the biosphere, it covers all, right? Because now it is the living things interacting with the non-living things, right? For example, we have trees here, right? We have trees. Trees are plants and they are living. But how do they interact with the soil? It's because they are embedded or planted in the soil, and that's how they are interacted and they get nutrients from what? From the soil. Also, they interact with what? With the hydrosphere by getting or absorbing water. They also interact with the atmosphere by absorbing carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, right? So this, which is what we're going to talk more about next. So we say that all the spheres of the Earth system, they interact with each other, right? There is no biosphere without the atmosphere, no biosphere without the lithosphere, and no biosphere without the hydrosphere, and vice versa, right? They are all interdependent and they interact with each other in that manner. So now, we say that, for example, the lithosphere and the hydrosphere, they interact when water erodes soil and carries it down to the sea, where it settles on the seafloor and forms sedimentary rock. That is one of the examples of how they interact amongst each other, right? The lithosphere, if you think of the lithosphere, it's all the solids of the earth, like your rocks, the soil, and so on, right? So the lithosphere and the hydrosphere, they interact with each other when the water from the hydrosphere erodes the soil from the lithosphere and carries it down to the sea, where it settles on the seafloor and forms sedimentary rock. Here's another example here. The atmosphere, which is the layer of gases, right? It interacts with the hydrosphere when the water from the hydrosphere evaporates, which turns its state from liquid to gaseous. It evaporates from the oceans and forming what? Water vapor, and which is a gas in the atmosphere. Also, The atmosphere interacts with the lithosphere, right, with the land, when the volcanoes erupt, shooting gases and dust into the air. So now, during a volcanic eruption, right, there's some reaction between or interaction between the atmosphere and the land, which is the lithosphere, right? Because when it erupts, when the volcano erupts, what happens? There's some gases that are shoot to or shot to the air. Now, also, the biosphere, as we said, that it only exists where all the other three spheres interact with each other, right? So photosynthesis, I said we're going to talk about, right? Photosynthesis is a good example of how all the four spheres interact with each other, and they need each other for the Earth system to work properly. So plants form food in their leaves using light energy from the sun, carbon dioxide, and water, which their roots take up from the soil, right? Now let's look more about, let's look at this photosynthesis in depth. Right. Photosynthesis is the process whereby plants make their own food, right? They make their own food. But how do they come about making their own food? They need factors such as the sun, the carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients from the soil, right? Now, if you look at these components that I just mentioned now, they all come from what? From the other spheres. So yes, the plant is part of the biosphere. It is living, right? It is a living thing, but it absorbs sunlight, right? It absorbs sunlight so that it can be able to manufacture its own food. Where is it planted? It is planted in the soil, right? And the soil is part of what? It is part of the, it is part of the lithosphere, right? It is part of the lithosphere, which are all the solids of the earth. And also the plant, in order for it to be able to make its own food, it absorbs carbon dioxide. Where do we find this carbon dioxide? The carbon dioxide is found where? From the atmosphere, right? From the atmosphere, which is the layer of gases. And also the plant, in order for it to be able to make its own food, it needs water. And the water comes from what? From the hydrosphere, right? The water comes from the hydrosphere. So now I want you to take a look at this, right? This is the plant making its own food and producing oxygen and sugars. Where does this oxygen and sugars go? It goes to the other living organisms, right? Which are us, right? We are here to consume the oxygen and sugars as glucose. So therefore we call all of this thing what? A biosphere. Why are we saying it's a biosphere? Because the biosphere is all the living organisms, which is you and the plant, and in their interactions with the non-living, which are the rocks, the soil, the water, and the gases around. Do you get it now? I hope so, right? So now, let's test ourselves using this activity, right? Let's go to the questions first. Now, activity one is saying, write down the spheres of the earth involved in each of the interactions described below, right? So now keywords, right? Keywords. Write down what? The spheres of the earth involved in each of the interactions described below. That's what you need to do only, right? Let's look at the statements. A, it says caves form in limestone rock when the rock is dissolved by rainwater that has become a weak acid. You just need only to state the spheres that are involved in this situation. B, rainwater becomes a weak acid when it absorbs carbon dioxide from the air while falling through it. Then C, as caves form, large spaces develop underground. Then D, water often flows as an underground river along the bottom of the cave. E, different animals live in the cave as well as in lakes and rivers within it. Then plants grow only in the light near the cave entrance. That's what you need to do, right? Only write down the spheres of the earth involved in each of the interactions described below. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to copy down and write down the answers, right? You can also use this picture to guide you. So let's meet again after 5 minutes. Welcome back, grade 9s. Now, I hope you have enjoyed our activity, right? We're still waiting for those questions, comments, or answers, right? On the WhatsApp number that is on the screen. So now, let's read through the questions first before we answer them, right? The statement was saying, write down the spheres of the Earth involved in each of the interactions described below. And then A, caves form in limestone rock when the rock is dissolved by rainwater that has become a weak acid. B, rainwater becomes a weak acid when it absorbs carbon dioxide from the air while falling through it. C, as caves form, large spaces develop underground. D, water often flows as an underground river along the bottom of the cave. Then E, different animals live in the cave as well as in lakes and rivers within it. Then plants grow only in the light near the cave entrance. That's all that you needed to do for this activity, right? Now let's look at the solutions. For A, the spheres are the lithosphere and the hydrosphere, right? Then B, the answer is the hydrosphere and the atmosphere. C, it is the lithosphere. Then D, it is the lithosphere and the hydrosphere. E is the biosphere, and also F is the biosphere. So let me just give you a quick 2 minutes to copy down the corrections. Welcome back, grade 9s. Now, to sum up everything, right, I want us to summarize what we have learned for today. So today we're talking about the four spheres of the Earth's system, right? So now, we said that the parts of the Earth's systems are called spheres, right? So we said that imagine Earth as a system. And we said that a system is a group of different parts that are working together for a specific function. So we said that also the Earth is a system because there's different parts that are interacting with each other, interdependent with each other, and working together to sustain life. Right? So we said that the Earth has four spheres in total, namely the biosphere, the lithosphere, the atmosphere, and the hydrosphere, right? And we said that all these spheres, they interact with each other on or near the surface of the Earth. For example, here, right, you see that this is a biosphere. And the biosphere, it's all the living organisms in their interactions with the non-living, right? So the biosphere is made up of the hydrosphere, the lithosphere, and the atmosphere where life is accommodated. So when you look at the lithosphere, it accommodates life, right? Because there are animals that are found on Earth. For example, on this picture, we have a worm, we have a fox there, and we have some insects. Then the hydrosphere also accommodates life, right? Because of what? It has some octopus, some fish, some sharks, some plants, and so on. Then the atmosphere also, it has microorganisms, right? So it also accommodates life, right? And now we're talking of what? Of all the interactions between all these spheres. So we said, for example, that the biosphere is the interaction of all living plants and animals within their environment on the surface and below and above what? The Earth's surface. Also, atmosphere, we said that this is a layer of gases, right? And we said that that layer of gases is made up of various gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and argon, right? And we said that the layer of gases also have what? Layers, right? It also has layers like the troposphere, the stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and the exosphere. And we also said that the lithosphere makes up all the solids of the earth, solids like the rocks and soils. We also talked about what? The hydrosphere, which is all the waters of the earth. And the waters, they come in all forms, right? Whether they are solids, liquids, and gas, right? And we talked about what the interactions amongst all of that using what? Photosynthesis as an example. We said that photosynthesis is a process whereby plants make their own food, right? So when plants make their own food, they depend on the sun, the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the lithosphere to plant the plant, right? The lithosphere, which is the soil, and the water from the hydrosphere. And it gives us as a product what? Oxygen for us to breathe, right? For humans to breathe, and also glucose for us to eat. So you can see that the biosphere is the overall what? Is the overall sphere that explains what? Or that explains what? The Earth's system. Are we together? Because now we are interdependent with plants in such a manner that they give us oxygen to breathe, glucose to do what? To eat, and we give off also carbon dioxide so that they are able to manufacture their own food. We water them with water from the hydrosphere and we plant them into onto the lithosphere, right? So we are all interdependent with the living things and the non-living things. So now I'm going to give you about 4 minutes for any questions that you might have. So we'll be waiting for those WhatsApp questions. Welcome back, grade 9s. Now, it seems like we don't have any questions, right? So now let's move on to our homework, right? Your homework requires you to match the words in column A with the descriptions in column B, right? Let's go through the questions together before I give you time to copy down the homework. So column A, we have hydrosphere. For number 1. Number 2, we have lithology. Number 3, we have atmosphere. Number 4, we have lithosphere. Then 5, we have biology. Then 6, we have hydrology. Then 7, we have biosphere. Then for column B, these are your options, right? A, it reads as follows: part of the earth that consists of all living things and their interactions with rocks, soil, and water. B, the branch of science that studies life, including what living things need to survive, what makes life possible, how living things evolve and change, and how living things interact with one another. C, part of earth that consists of solid rock, stones, and soil. Then D, part of the earth that consists of water in all its forms. Then E, the branch of science that studies the distribution, quality, and movement of water on earth. F, the branch of geology that studies the origin, formation, mineral composition, and classification of rocks. Then the last one, G, part of earth that consists of a layer of gases around the earth's surface. So you just need to match column A with column B, right? So I hope you do this activity and you enjoy it, because we're going to use it again or mark it before we move on with our next lesson, right? So now take 5 minutes to copy down this homework.
You and I have parents who make sacrifices day and night for us to be at school. You and I have people who believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves, who love us when we don't love ourselves, who invest in us day and time again. Whether it's a teacher, it's a principal, it's a driver, it's a guardian, we have so much to be grateful for. And so I challenge you, young person, be thankful, ubonge, leboha, be grateful each and every single day of your life. Strive to display an attitude of gratitude.
Welcome back, grade 9s. Now I hope you had ample time to copy down the homework, right? So now in our next lesson, we'll be talking about the lithosphere and the rock cycle, right? So go home, search more about the topic, scan through your textbook, make sure that you have enough knowledge so that when I come and teach, it becomes easier, right? So go and search more about the lithosphere and the rock cycling. From me to you now, thank you and goodbye.